So I hope you've had a great day. We got back home tonight a couple hours ago and been unpacking, and it was such a windy place. We didn't get to do a lot of things that we normally would have done, but it was still a very nice getaway. Got a little relaxing done, got some hiking done, and just spending time together with my husband is a great thing. So I read the other day while we were on our little getaway. Do you guys know who Mike Rowe is? He had a show. I never actually watched the show, but I think it was Dirtiest Jobs in America or something like that. And he's just kind of a character. And now I follow him. I don't see a lot of his stuff. Talking about Mike Rowe, I don't see a lot of his stuff, but I love when he talks with his mom. His mom is hilarious, and she's actually written. Hi, Emily. I think I'm tired. She's written 2 books, and I'm not sure if they're both about her husband, but yeah. So anyway, I was reading a post of his, and he was talking about how he was out taking a walk and just getting some vitamin D and walking around his block or something, and he came upon a hawk who had a pigeon in its talons. And he said, yeah, they are so funny, aren't they? He said the hawk tried to fly off with the pigeon and ended up dropping the pigeon, flew into a tree, and the pigeon was hurt, so it was sitting there. And he was kind of watching the pigeon. It tried to fly away and it couldn't, and he figured it must have broken a wing or something, but it was hopping all around. And he said, what would you do in that situation? And he sat down on the curb and said, this pigeon, is right there hopping around. And he said, I look in the tree and the hawk's got its eye right on me. Like, get out of here, pal. I'm busy. And he said, I realized I had 3 options. One was to let nature supposedly take its course and leave. The other was to take the pigeon home and take care of it, or to hit it with a rock so nature could take its course without it having to be eaten alive. And he said, I'm looking at the hawk and I'm looking at the pigeon who's now come over to me and staring right in my eyes. And he said, and he ended it with, I'll tell you what I did later. Like, what? No. So I did see his post the next day. And his post the next day, he talked about a lot of different things before he said what he did. And he just said, do you always think you know what you're going to do? How you're going to react to a situation? He said, I just watched in Rochester, New York, how protesters went into a restaurant and there were family and elderly eating there. And these protesters were throwing the elderly on the floor and harassing the families. And he said, how would I react in that situation if I was there? And he said, in my mind, immediately, I would help them, even though I knew I would get my butt kicked. But he said, in the moment, would I really help them? And I started thinking about different things, in my life, how I've reacted or not reacted in the way I would have thought. And I think sometimes in in your mind you think, yep, this is how I'm going to react if that happens. And then you get in the middle of the situation and you're just in so much shock. I ended up watching a head-on collision happen in my rearview mirror on the way to work one day. And I didn't even know there was a car behind me, and all of a sudden this truck is crossing the line, and there's another truck filled with hay. And I saw in my rearview mirror as they both collided head on, and all the hay went up like an explosion in the sky. And I was in so much shock. I think I drove another mile just trying to process it all. I think I was 19, and I was on my way to work. And finally, I just was like, what am I doing? And I stopped the car and turned around and went to get help. And luckily, one of the guys only broke his kneecap, and the other guy was in the middle of a diabetic seizure. So he didn't know what he was doing. He was out, and that's why it happened the way it did. If he wouldn't have crossed the line, he probably would have ran into the back of the pickup I was driving. But, yeah, you just think. And in another accident, my husband and I saw a car hit a tree with two people in it, and they went around a curve too fast, and we were out of our cars just like that. We were older, and we had watched the whole thing happen, and we just both jumped. But you just don't always know how your body and your mind is going to react to something. And so Mike Rowe told the story, was it yesterday or this morning? My days are all mixed up. I keep thinking today's Sunday because we're coming back from camping. So I'm a little messed up on my time. But anyway, he said that it's funny because you think, and he goes, I would have thought, well, let nature take its course. It's the way that it goes. But he goes, when you have a pigeon sitting beside you looking into your face like, please help me. He said, your ideas of what you thought you would have done are completely different. And he said, I did not take it home. He said, I actually picked it up and took it down the street to a different area, and I put it under a bush. And he said, if it died, he goes, the thing that kept coming back to mind was, I've heard of people thinking animals, especially birds, were dead because they'll hit a window or something, and you go to get rid of them, and all of a sudden, an hour later, they come back to life. And so he said, I just thought maybe it should have time to do, whatever, but if it dies, it dies. So it just got me to thinking of how many times are we so positive that we're going to do and react in a certain way when we really aren't. And yeah, it's really something to think about. So he said the thing that blew him away was he went to, he put the pigeon where he put it, went on with his evening or his day, said that evening, never even thought about it. Said the next morning I got up and I thought, I'm going to check on it to make sure it's either, and he said it was gone. So either the hawk found it and took it or whatever. But he goes, the craziest thing was he had 70,000 comments on his story on what people thought he should do. And he said that's where it made him think of all these things, of you don't know how you're going to react to something. Because he said 70,000 comments on what to do with a pigeon. He goes, what if it was a person? What if it was these people in Rochester, New York, you know? So that's what got him thinking, and he told his whole story. But it just made me think of how in the world do we know what we're going to do? So I think a lot of times it's just asking God to show us, because He's the one who knows what we're going to do before we even do it. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting story I needed to share. And thank you, Emily, for being here and listening. I hope you had a great day. Our joy moment today was with our keto diet. We had chaffles to use as our buns for our BLT tonight. And Dan was pretty excited about that. He's getting a little tired of his bread looking like lettuce on his sandwiches. So that was really his joy moment, but it was fun to make him happy. So I hope you have a great night, Emily, and the rest of you who watch, and we will talk to you tomorrow. See ya.